I'm really excited to have a chat with you today and find out more about you, what you do, and how you embarked on this journey. Before we start, I want to sort of set the tone of our discussion. But as I asked to moderate this window, I started thinking about Madeleine Albright, made the Secretary of State during the Clinton era. That's something very famous. I know it's overstated, but you have to remember it. She talks about how there's a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. So that is very famous. But she also said something about mediocrity. She said that there's a lot of opportunity for men to hit and miss. There's room for mediocrity for men, but women can't get away with just being mediocre. To get to the top, you really have to work hard. And I think you have reached that position in your life and you're far from mediocre. And we're just really excited to find out more about you. And well, I guess we can start really with, what you're doing at the moment. Tell us about the company you're working with, what excites you about it, and your role in that company.
Thank you so much. That's really generous and kind of you. It's still a journey I'm on, but I'm fairly happy where I've been and where I'm right now. So I'm Pei, and I am the Executive Director and COO at the Theoriq Foundation. Theoriq is building a AI native liquidity layer for the emerging agentic economy, where autonomous AI agent swarms can interact with the DeFi protocols to manage liquidity, create alpha, and also deliver institutional grade autonomous strategies across chains. So very different from the current status quo where yield and opportunities are static and very reactive. We're using AI to change that. And we're going to be much more adaptive to market conditions. We're moving much faster, and we're able to turn that static opportunities into more structural and temporal, and be able to capture the yield opportunities essentially much more sustainably. So that's what I'm working on right now. My background is in crypto and TradFi. So it's been many years since I first joined in the beginning of 2018. So yeah, we'll dive into that later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the journey into crypto obviously is not a straightforward one. So we had a bit of a discussion about your background. And clearly, with the language that you're using, you're very, very familiar and comfortable with financial language. So I take it you come from a traditional finance background. Tell us a bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
So right out of graduate school, I went to work at Goldman Sachs in New York City, and I was part of the fixed income trading team, and it was many hours and very, very tough and intense experience, right? So a lot of the trading requires a ton of time-sensitive actions. The system we're using was cumbersome, to say the best. And I've experienced the firsthand how the legacy financial infrastructure was just like failing to keep up with the volume and the changing financial instruments we're trading, right? And that was a key point of person of Goldman Sachs when DTCC and the 8 biggest banks on Wall Street got together trying to redo the mortgage-backed security real-time innovation. So I was the person who actually read tons of the white paper, wrote down the points, and explain to them how the current trading infrastructure and from upstream to downstream just simply wouldn't work, and how we should change that from like a technical perspective. And over the years, obviously, we've come a long way. A lot of traders are replaced by robots, and we've moved on with the AI help, right? But I was like, at the end of the 8 years at Goldman, I was done. Like I was looking for something that's more futuristic and like represents the next wave of financial market. So I got in touch, or I got reached out by Consensus, which still is one of the largest crypto companies in the world. So I joined Joe Lubin, his team, and we worked on a series of very interesting, fun initiatives, including the ETH staking and stablecoin issuance and things like that, and then MetaMask as we know it today.
Yeah, and I think Joe Lubin also has a background at Goldman Sachs. So did you know him during his time at Goldman?
He was a few years ahead of me.
Okay.
But I'm sure he lived through the same frustration, right? He
Yeah.
was an engineer in wealth management department, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure he was very ready to like explore the next generation of tech. And I think when he met Vitalik, that was a turning point for him. And then when I met his team, that was a turning point for me.
Yeah. And you know that Charles Hoskin as well was one of the co-founders of Ethereum too. So it's a very small circle of the whales and OGs in this space. So you keep on bumping into people you know. And, you know, I find Consensus has supported a lot of female talent along the way as well. So you had them reach out to you. That's still a really big decision to make. It reminds me of when I left the world of, you know, financial services. I was working for big accounts in the Wall Street of Europe and London. I absolutely hated it. And then I saw all of this amazing fintech coming through the fore. And it was a really big challenge. Like, I think it probably led to the destruction of my marriage at some point because, you know, to take that leap is really, really hard. So what made you really decide to do that? At what point of your career was it time for you to move on? Did you have other obligations? Or just like, it's now or never? I'm leaving Goldman. I'm going into this crazy world of Web3.
Yeah, I remember there was like a very distinctive moment when I submitted my resignation to my boss, and he looked me in the eyes like, there's so much ahead of you. You're gonna do great, and like, don't worry about the stuff that you left behind, because it was really hard to leave an established brand like Goldman Sachs and, you know, the Wall Street brand, all of that, and go to work for a very, I would say, like hippish crypto startup, right?
Yeah,
and it was
absolutely.
so chaotic. The transition was going from one end of the spectrum to the other. But I was just ready to explore something that is like very unknown, and I was ready to build, and I was ready to make an impact. And I think that sometimes is something that you kind of have to push yourself out of a comfort zone. And that's something that a lot of women chose not to do because of out of consideration of like family obligations or just like being shy or wasn't confident enough. I think that we have to change that.
Exactly. And Goldman, I know they've tried to make things easier for women, but they don't have the best reputation in terms of nurturing and keeping female talent. I know they're trying. They've had like crushes now on site. But I also have met a lot of women who've had to sort of take a step back because it was very difficult to maintain that kind of career and balance your private life as well, whether it's children or just having more me time. But I guess I want to ask you, because like me, you've had this experience both in traditional finance, now in, you know, the world of Web3. What have been sort of unique challenges in Web3 versus your time at Goldman? Or have you, you faced similar challenges in both industries? Because they're both incredibly challenging. We're grossly underrepresented. But at the same time, you can also do insanely well in sort of in both industries.
Yeah, I think if I have to point to one thing that like, hey, this is even more challenging, because I basically went from one male-dominated industry to another male, especially like technical, super engineering and, you know, nerdy crowd like dominated world, right? But so from like kind of like the balance of the managing the chemistry in the room, it hasn't really changed dramatically. But I would say crypto requires much more of just like ability to establish boundary, because you can be online terminally and still feel like you're not putting enough time in that, right? And there's a lot of FOMO, there's a lot of fighting, and as a woman, sometimes it's very hard to deal with all of that. You don't know how much you should put yourself out there and how much you should reserve the privacy and all of that.
Right.
So
they both are very challenging. And what about sort of the structure? If there is any structure in Web3, was that a challenge for you going from Goldman, where you're expected to be in the office with your team 9 till 9 p.m. or midnight, or how many hours you were working, versus?
So it's less structure for sure. I feel like, you know, crypto is kind of like the holy grail of like a startup. If you think startup is a little bit like unpredictable and chaotic, and crypto is like the next level, right? It's just like gear up. I think COVID kind of came in and addressed a lot of those concerns because like at that one point, I remember banks were also working remotely. Nobody's going to the office, and then everyone started to get used to this concept of going in occasionally or a couple days a week. So it's really like, I like the flexibility of working remotely because I'm a mother and have 2 little kids. So like I think that's a benefit, not a disadvantage.
Yeah, I think it does help a lot of women to balance their private life and, their work life. Just having that flexibility is super important. Some people call it out if you're at the start of your career, you lose that face time with coworkers, those conversations by the cooler that can really help you to advance your career and your development within the organization. Do you feel that for the younger generation who are now put in a position where they're having to work remotely, they're somehow shortchanged in their career advancement by not having that face-to-face time?
To a certain extent, I guess so. I think humans are humans, right? You still need that in-person interaction to primarily establish trust. And I think establishing trust in crypto and in remote first companies is extremely hard.
Absolutely.
And I think that definitely, but like as a society, we're moving a lot more online and virtual. We just become a more introvert in general. So I think I think we're all adapting to the new normal.
It is challenging, I have to say. But again, it levels the playing field, I think, for a lot of women who may not have been able to, get into the workforce and have a viable career because they have other obligations at home. So not having to commute, not having to be in the office, and, protecting yourself from a lot of the politics that can actually wear you down a bit as well, I think is advantageous. So there are challenges, but there's also benefits in this new world of working. I want to talk a bit about some of the projects that are really exciting you. You know a lot about this space. Tell me a bit about sort of like a few real world examples. You're like, yes, this is it. We've arrived as a Web3 industry.
Yeah, I think as an industry, we're at a very good moment. I'm definitely extremely bullish and excited about the movement of like the whole cash getting on crypto programmable rails. That's the first step, right? That's the base layer. When you move the dollars and other currencies online, that shortens the settlement time, that breaks down the wall of like foreign exchange credit workflows, and just makes the capital efficiency so much easier. The next movement, I think I'm very excited about it. It's like just like going from the baseline to the activity level. So you can already see some of the project demonstrate the possibility of like being able to rev share with end users like directly, and being able to tokenize all sorts of like products under the like a very simple wrapper, right? So what I'm saying is like, for instance, what we're building at Theoriq, we're building this alpha vault. Essentially, it's like a tokenized vault. It's ERC 4626. So the interface is just like one click, user deposits, and you get the tokenized shares, and then the AI agents or the curator of the vault actually is responsible to deploy the TVL or the AUM into all sorts of different passive and active trading strategies, and deliver the yield in like simple token yield form.
That's amazing.
And then the other examples like a Hyperliquid, Ethena, they're all achieving huge amount of adoption because of that, right? Like being able to share the revenue coming out of the platform, coming out of the activities that's built inside the products.
Absolutely. And what about the everyday like consumer? What would you think is like going to be the big Web3 application that everyone's going to embrace? I mean, these is for like investors, retail investors who are savvy. They understand how the world works. A lot of them have some financial background, but I'm talking about like the everyday person. Like even my son, he saw me once using my ledger, and he's like, "What are you? Are you a drug dealer, Mom? Like, what is this?" I mean, it's like, outside of our bubble, we still have a credibility issue. So I'm still wondering, what is going to be that killer application that everyone is going to use, like a mobile phone, like the internet? What would you think? What do you think?
Yeah,
that's
I
going to
mean,
be.
there are a lot of different shapes and forms talking about the
Yeah.
Omni application or one-stop, kind of onboarding interface, right? So I think
Yeah.
like two things are going to help with that a lot. One is just AI experience. So
Yeah.
nobody has any trouble onboarding Chat GPT.
Yeah.
No matter if you're a kid, you're our age, or older. It's a simple concept, right? You get to a browser like interface. You put in the questions, and then you get your answers. So I
Right.
think the financial experience with the crypto or like financial markets in general will go in that direction like very decisively and very quickly.
Yeah,
And the next
exciting.
generation is not gonna try to look at all the dashboards and consume the information, make decisions on the
Yeah.
portfolio. They're gonna be, I have a question, I'm gonna put it down here. You are responsible for telling me like what are my options are. I'm gonna go click, and then next thing you know is deployed, right? So the AI
Yeah.
will really flatten that process of onboarding. And I think like, yeah, another is like just like all the ongoing momentum with stablecoins and with distribution of, tokenizing the world, tokenizing the
Absolutely.
RWA, tokenizing assets, and that'll be the future.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more about real world assets and stablecoin, because there's some places that, stablecoins is a lifeline for a lot of emerging economies. Even with people that we work with in Africa and, South America, they can't pay us any other way. So there's a lot of even discrimination. They're on some kind of list and, watch list, and, they just can't move money around as efficiently as, someone who's based in Western Europe or the US. So I agree that those are probably two of the biggest advancements and are going to be embraced by more and more people over the coming years. I'm just looking at now, I mean, for anyone that's trying to break into the space, so you have a young woman, she's just graduated from university. I don't think there's any university yet that offers a degree in Web3. I mean, someone who's coming out without a scientific degree, how do you think they can actually break into this space and get a career in this day and age with Web3? What's some advice that you could give them if they want to break into the world?
Yeah, I think just like be brave and get that first job, and then actually get your hands dirty by actually using the product and make that first move, like get on the decentralized exchange and provide that first liquidity into the pool. I know it sounds over like abstract, but it really, there's nothing more than better than like just actually trying out the product and then actually understand. If you can talk about one product and like from personal experience, that gives you credibility right away. But I think like crypto in general is a very confusing industry, very tricky to navigate. It's very intimidating, especially for women. And one thing I regretted, or I wished I had a lot earlier in my career, is just like seeking mentorship.
I was going to ask you about that. Do you have any mentors?
I would say like in my TradFi days, I felt like I never found that mentor. I have like maybe one or two senior people like I feel like can relate to my experience and all. But in crypto for sure, like every step of the way, I always had like some mentor, be it a woman, senior woman exec at the company, or it could be a guy. It doesn't really matter, right? So, but the most important thing is that there's something that you can relate to each other. That person, your mentor, sees something in you and then wanted to help you, right? Navigate. And it's so important because it's just by yourself. Like you don't know where is the benchmark. You don't know how confident you should be. You don't understand the politics and how to manage up and down and what to like steer clear of, right? So I do think like the experience, if you see experienced person around you in your network or at the workplace, like just hold on to that person, like actually ask a million questions.
For sure.
That's another thing is like actually ask a lot of questions, actually challenge a lot of decisions, actually don't be afraid of like being confrontation, like being confronting your manager or your colleagues on decisions and things they do, because that's actually sometimes you gain respect, and that's how you move forward faster.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that we talked a bit about mentors, and there have been a lot of male mentors even in the Web3 space. That was my biggest surprise, actually. I just thought I'd have a few like power women supporting me within the community, but there has been, there have been men, and maybe they want more women. Who knows? I mean, I think a lot of the challenges for women is found in the internet, and it's like chat rooms where people hide under an anonymous cloak, behind an anonymous cloak. But I think for the most part, I think, breaking in is challenging, but I think a bigger challenge maybe is retaining that talent, nurturing so they can go all the way up and break that glass ceiling. If there is a glass ceiling, I mean, it's not a conventional way of working, as we talked about. So one more question I'd like to ask you before we end this very interesting conversation. And I think we could be friends. We can hang out with Minteo, all three of
we should
us.
definitely hang out after
Definitely.
this. Yes.
What piece of advice would you give to the community to help ensure that we can attract and retain female talent in this crazy ecosystem we belong to?
That's a very hard question because sometimes no matter how hard you try, I've at every role that I've been at, I try really hard to hire women, and I went as far as I just like intentionally lower my bar, just like interview more women than men. But I think like it comes back to I do think there's a balance you have to strike. You can't like discriminate men either, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
So we want to just hire the most capable and the most talented and most like hungry. Yeah, like I guess like from a hiring and retaining talent perspective, just understand the needs of women are most likely different than the needs of men, like at the workplace, and then actually address them differently. Because if it's all about like aligning incentive, if the incentive is perfectly aligned, and the female employees will stay. Yeah. But if the incentive is not aligned and there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of frustration or misunderstanding, emotional damage, then you're most certainly losing that talent.
Yeah, it's difficult. Maybe it's something we can discuss on another day, but community, just, building a strong community of like-minded people, and internships, just getting women out just fresh out of university or even high school, and see if they want to explore working in this space, and being that mentor. I think mentorship is really important. Yeah, it is a very difficult.
I do like those like personal one-on-one mentorship more than like a very structured forum or frequent meetups or like a large group, right? Because I think there's something really, really important to be comfortable, like completely comfortable with that person, like so you can discuss like different issues in private or with full transparency. So I've been part of like women networks for blockchain and crypto over the years. I've definitely been part of the women blockchain brand. I'm part of Crypto Moms brand.
Oh, great.
So people discuss different things, right? At the Crypto Moms circle and network, everyone's like much more mature and senior, and they want to talk about kid stuff, right? Because the work, the career progression is less of a concern, but it's more about balancing the life between work and your kids or family. And if you go to women blockchain, there's a lot more younger, hungry women wanting to break into the industry. So it's a lot more about product discussion, which project you should look at, and it's very, very different. I'm fortunate. I feel like I've got to the place where I have the bandwidth and capacity and knowledge to mentor younger women. And also I have the time to actually set aside with my peers and to discuss something that's not completely work related. So it's, I think it takes time.
Well, hang in there. I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Thank you so much for sharing your career journey with us. And thank you to everyone here who has listened to our very interesting discussion. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.